Hi everybody, and welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Greta and I'm the dietitian at John Stoddard Cancer Center. So today we're going to make a fish dish. And I can hear many of you saying, but Greta, I don't like fish. And I know lots of people don't like fish. But again, I think it's something that maybe hasn't been prepared in a tasteful way or in a way that you enjoyed it. So I want to try to show you a way of preparing fish that's really easy but tastes amazing, and also is going to incorporate lots of seasonal ingredients and lots of fresh ingredients. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start with some of my veggies in this recipe. So we're going to start with tomatoes, and during the summertime I'm always looking for ways to use up tomatoes. I always have oodles and oodles of tomatoes. This recipe actually uses cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes, whichever you have on hand. I know I grow those in my garden and I'll have tons of them to use up. So it's going to use about a pint of either cherry or grape tomatoes. You don't even have to cut them. That's how easy this is. So I'm going to use a little creative license in this. So it calls for a pint, but I had a few extra in another pint that I need to use up. They're about ready to be done. So I actually added a few extra tomatoes. So I'm going to just dump these into, this is about a 9 by 13 oven safe roasting dish. Just throwing them in there. So the next thing we're going to use are shallots. So if you don't have shallots, you absolutely could use a small onion. I'm going to use 2 shallots in this one. So it's not a huge quantity. So if you have a nice little onion, you could do a half of a red onion if you have one to use up in your fridge. I always feel like I have pieces of red onion in my fridge to use up. Push the skins out of the way. So we're just going to kind of slice through our shallots. I'm just taking the skins off of them. This is going to give it some wonderful flavor. And we're actually going to roast the vegetables by themselves before we add the fish, because fish actually cooks really fast, which is the nice thing about fish, especially during the summertime when we don't want our ovens on very long. It cooks really, really fast. So I'm just going to kind of slice my shallots nice and thin. They're flying off my cutting board. I'm just going to throw them in with my tomatoes. Just like that. I'm going to get down to the end, go the other direction. I'm also going to show you kind of how to make this like a complete dinner. So we're going to do a couple side dishes with this too, that you can add on and kind of make it a even totally complete meal with some other things that you might have available to use up from other recipes that we've done. All right, shallots are in, they're just kind of spread around. The next thing we're going to do are a couple cloves of garlic. So I've got, grab 2 nice sized cloves of garlic. Those are medium-ish size. If you watch my other videos, you know I really like garlic, so I kind of go all out on my garlic. Get my skins off. Later in the year, kind of in the fall, there'll be some local garlic available if you buy veggies, fruits and veggies from the farmer's market, or you use one of the co-ops. And there's some beautiful local garlic, and the cloves are huge. It's amazing. I'm going to clean my skins off my cutting board. There we go. All right, so I'm doing 3 because mine I felt like were a little smaller than I like. But you can do 2 large ones if you have bigger ones. More is better as far as I'm concerned with garlic. It adds so much wonderful flavor. When people ask me about, well, how do I flavor my food without salt? And garlic and herbs is usually one of the places I start with. Fresh herbs are a wonderful way to add flavor. Lots of garlic. If you like heat, red pepper flakes are great. Pepper is great. So there's lots of ways we can flavor our food without adding a lot of salt. And I'm not going to make this too terribly fine. It doesn't have to be really fine like we do for a dressing or something like that, because we actually are going to roast this in here with our veggies. All right, that looks good to me. So I'm going to just throw my chopped garlic in here. And this is it's almost going to create kind of like a, gosh, I almost want to say like a thick sauce for your fish. And we're going to make I'm going to make some quinoa to go with mine. You can accompany any grain with this, would be great to kind of top on it. All right, so we're going to real quick mix up sort of a dressing to flavor this. So I'm going to get out a bowl and I'm going to mix up 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, like so. We're going to do a tablespoon of red wine vinegar. It's going to add a really nice acidity and flavor to this. And when vinegar, when it cooks, it kind of sweetens, so it's going to be really delicious. Then we're going to add just a teaspoon of honey. I'm using my same measuring spoon because I know about how much a teaspoon looks like. Excuse my timer. All right. And we're just going to kind of whisk that together till it's all connected. See how it all meets now once we whisk it together. Delicious. And we're going to drizzle that over top of our tomatoes and our shallots and our garlic. You could also serve this over top of greens, and you could repeat that and make like a salad dressing. Make that in this bowl and kind of mix your greens in there. All right, and I am going to pepper it. Remember, season all your layers. And I'm going to salt it with just about maybe a half teaspoon of salt, not a lot. It's going to have a lot of flavor from all the other things that we've added. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this into a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes, and we'll be back to add the fish. Okay, so I've got my tomatoes and shallots and garlic are roasting in the oven right now. So I'm going to show you a really quick side dish that's a great accompaniment to the fish. So I'm going to go over to my stove. I'm going to heat up a pan. It's got 3 tablespoons of olive oil in it. I'm going to put it kind of on a medium-ish heat. Let that warm up. On my cutting board, I have 3 tablespoons of garlic. So I'm going to go ahead and just chop up my garlic. Now for this recipe, we are going to cook it. So it doesn't have to be really small, but we're going to be using 2 bunches of greens. So I kind of like it to get distributed through all those greens. So I do chop it up pretty good because I want to get a little bit on all of it. So this recipe is a super easy way of using up lots of your greens. Like I mentioned before, your kales and your Swiss chards are so readily available. They're so inexpensive. And you know, when I ask people what kind of veggies they eat as like their side dishes, 9 times out of 10 I hear broccoli. And I feel like I just need to give you an alternative to broccoli. There's got to be something else. So this is a really delicious option. Cooks in a flash really fast. And again, uses up these wonderful greens and adds tons of flavor with the garlic. So my garlic is all chopped up and ready to roll. Like so. So over here, I have washed 2 bunches of kale. Now I use 2 different kinds of kale. So this is the lacinato kale or dinosaur kale. And it kind of looks like the scales of a lizard. So that's one kind of kale that I'm using because that's what I had left over in my refrigerator. So I'm going to use it up. So what I did was I pulled the stems off and then I just ripped it into kind of bite-sized-ish pieces. So don't even have to chop this. This is your curly kale. So I also have a bunch of that in here. Again, I just pulled the stems, ripped it into bite-sized pieces, and then I have it in here. It's all washed and it's ready to go. So I'm going to step over to my stove, grab a scraper. So, excuse me. So my oil should be getting hot. I'm scraping up all my garlic to take with me. All right, so we're coming over here. You can smell my oil's getting hot. I'm gonna throw my garlic in. So because we're using so much garlic and greens, they like that flavor, but then they really don't need much of any salt. I really don't put a lot of salt on my greens when I saute them because they really don't need it. So I'm just going to kind of lightly saute my garlic. I don't want it to get too dark. Garlic, if when you're sauteing it, if you get to the point that it gets really brown, it can start to have a very burnt flavor. And it cooks very quickly. So you go from, a delicious, wonderful smell to sort of this kind of burnt smell very quickly. So we just want to get a little bit of color on it because the kale is going to cook in literally like 3 minutes. So it's not going to have time to cook more once we put the kale in. And there is quite a bit of oil in here for this amount of garlic, so it's going to want to almost fry up really fast. So that's why I'm kind of stirring it around and keeping an eye on it. So I was doing some other multitasking while I was making the fish. So over here I have the quinoa. My quinoa is already ready to go. So that's another great side dish. You could do any grain that you wanted to with this fish, but I like the quinoa. I still had some left from when we made it with our grain bowls. All right, so you can see now just around the edges of my garlic, it is just starting to turn brown. And the smell changes. It starts to have kind of a nuttier smell. And that's the point where I say, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm gonna add my greens. So I'm gonna walk around my camera guy. Sorry, camera guy. Making it difficult. So I'm grabbing my greens. I'm gonna go ahead and throw all of these greens in here. Sizzling at me because there's a little bit of water on them. Sorry about that. It's probably noisy into my microphone. I apologize. These will wilt down very quickly. Get rid of that so everybody can see. The crackling sound is the water that's coming off of my greens, so I just washed them. It looks like a ton. I know, it looks like a lot, but you will be really surprised. It will wilt down really quickly. So if you like something that has a little bit of kind of kick to it, if you want to add a little bit of spice, this is the point you could add some red pepper flakes to this. Just to give it a little something extra, and that would be delicious too. I'm not, like I've mentioned before, I'm not a huge spice person. So I don't often add a lot of spicy spice. All right, so while that's working, camera guy, you can stay there. I'm just grabbing my salt and pepper. I'm going to give it a grind of pepper. And I'm going to add like maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, like just a tiny bit, more like almost a pinch. It really just doesn't need it. And you can see these greens are just starting to wilt down. They're shrinking, and it goes so quickly. Oh, it smells so good. And this is just a beautiful, fast, and easy side dish to add with any of the dishes really that we've made. This one's even good to add as a side dish if you're making like scrambled eggs for breakfast and just put some of this with it. Oh, it's amazing. All right. And at this point, you can see it, I look good to go. They really don't need a lot of time. Oh, it smells so amazing. All right, and at that point, I am done. Turn off my heat. And those are ready to get served with our fish. So we'll be right back to add our fish to our tomatoes and shallots. Hi everybody, so we are back because our tomatoes and our shallots just came out of the oven. The tomatoes are really close to bursting. I can see they've kind of blown up a little bit. I've got my fish here, it's ready to go. So this is a piece of halibut. You can do any kind of nice firm white fish for this because we're going to cut it into portions. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a paper towel to take off any excess liquid off of this. Now my halibut still has the skin on. I do recommend keeping the skin on. I apologize for the sound effects that we're getting. I have company near the kitchen because the fish just came out. So I leave the skin on because it does add a lot of flavor, and the fish will slide right off the skin once you bake it. I'm gonna wash my hands, camera guy, sorry. He's gotta come with me everywhere because my microphone is very short. All right, I'm gonna grab a clean knife. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this into 4 approximately even portions because I just want them to cook evenly more than anything. So I'm just gonna slice through. Now, depending on where you buy your fish, you know, I don't have any affiliation necessarily with anybody in town, but I buy my fish at Whole Foods. I feel like the quality is always excellent. They also are very willing to debone, you know, if you have bones, they'll remove the bones for you. They will fillet a whole fish for you. They'll cut it into portions. They're very accommodating. So if you're not too familiar with buying fish, I do recommend them. They do a really good job. And I just touched my fish again, sorry. So I like what they have. They also, you can ask them if you have a certain recipe and you don't know what kind of fish will work best. I feel like they really know best what will work with what you want to do with it. I'm going to go ahead and season my fish as well. With salt and pepper because it's its only chance to get seasoned. I'm just doing a little tiny kind of a pinch. My hands are wet, so I didn't want to stick my fingers in there. Okay, so now we're gonna nestle our fish right in between our tomatoes and shallots, just like so. So cod is a really easy fish to find that would work in this as well. So you absolutely could use cod and that would work great. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this back into the oven for about 10-12 minutes because these pieces are small. They're gonna cook really fast. So we'll come back when they come out of the oven. Welcome back, and our fish is out of the oven and it looks beautiful. So all the tomatoes are starting to burst and it's just creating this just like delicious sauce in the bottom. So we're gonna make it even more delicious. We're going to go ahead and I'm gonna zest about a half a lemon, just a little bit across the top, just to give it a whole nother layer of flavor. It's gonna add this wonderful like fresh citrusy note to it. Excuse my other timer. Just like that. I missed when I dabbed that one. There we go. And then I have here some basil. I just picked this out of my garden actually. So this is fresh basil. You could do mint. You can do flat leaf parsley. Even fresh oregano would be delicious. I'm just gonna kind of put my knife through it just real quick, just like this. I'm doing basil because my basil is exploding. And we're just gonna add some fresh basil to the top of this, and with that those tomatoes, it's just creating this beautiful, wonderful, fresh sauce. And I'm gonna go ahead and serve mine with a serving of quinoa and my sauteed kale and garlic, and we've got dinner. So thanks for joining me, everybody. Enjoy.